Good evening, welcome to the Goffstown Planning Board. This is a regular scheduled meeting, and we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I will do introductions, starting with Dave.
Dave Pierce, I'm an alternate member of the board.
Richard Freeman.
Tim Searles.
Tim Redmond.
Scott Ozin, the town engineer.
Joshua Douglas, select board rep.
Philip Gavanza.
Joanne Duffy, Planning and Economic Development Director.
Thank you everyone for coming tonight. We have an amended agenda from what was sent to us in our packet. So Joanne, I'm going to let you, we are going to go to all other business tonight, Joanne, or correspondence and action items first? We'll do them first, right?
Yeah, usually you do correspondence first.
Okay, we'll start with the minutes of April the 23rd.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Does anyone have any corrections or discussion on the minutes? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention?
Abstain.
One abstention, motion passes. Next item is request for a release to surety Woodland Village. I suppose Scott, I'll let you speak to that, I believe.
Yes, so if you recall, Woodland Village was the apartments off of Bog Road. Last fall, early winter maybe, they requested a bond for the trail work. There was originally supposed to be some bridges. An original contractor put in undersized pipes as temporary, and then when the contractor switched hands, the new developer requested to just put in cross culverts. They weren't going to be through permitting before they were requesting COs, so the board granted the request for the bond for that incomplete work. Since then, that work has been completed. It was completed midwinter, and then they came back in the spring and did some cleanup work and finished everything up.
Are you recommending the release of this bond?
Yes.
All right. Board questions for the town engineer?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on the motion to approve the requested release of escrow? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes. We have a request for comments from the Select Board to build a single-family home on Allard Park Road. Allard Park Road is a private road. For those of you who don't know where it is, it goes into the baseball field down off of Goffstown Back Road, where the Babe Ruth field is. So Joanne, could you give us a quick rundown on this, please?
Yes, for those of you looking for this, I know it wasn't in your packet, it's on your plate, but it's sitting on the table tonight. So we have received a request for someone to obtain a building permit to build a house, a single-family home, on a a private road at 36 Allard Park, which is map 6, lot 4. The process is that they need permission from the select board, but before the select board votes on it, they usually request the planning board's input. So the timeline shows that the ZBA did grant a special exception to build the single-family home on a lot that does not have frontage on the Class 5 roadway. And number 2 is that they do have their approval for construction of a 4-bedroom home with a septic system. And that the town receive a request to authorize the building permit for the 4-bedroom with the stipulation that they do sign off on the waiver of liability, so the town is not responsible for anything as far as trash pickup, maintenance of the roadway itself, snow plowing, things like that. This will go to the selectmen for final approval. They're just looking for your comments at this time.
You say it goes to the selectmen, but this is generated by the Board of Selectmen.
Yes, well, sometimes people go to the select board first, then the select board sends it back to us, and then
I'm
we
saying
send it
this
back to
request
them.
When did it go in front of the select board?
It has not yet.
There
We
you go.
jumped, we jumped to your board, that's why it came in late, because if we waited, they would have had to have waited like another month, so because we were meeting this week,
Yeah, I was gonna say, I've never seen this.
yeah.
So this
it
came
will-
from the town administrator then?
Yes,
So let's make sure we know where it came from and it's on the record.
Yes.
Because a request from the Board of Selectmen generally comes from the Board of Selectmen.
correct.
So I'm going to make sure it's clear that this comes from the town administrator.
Yes, it
Thank you.
did. So, we thought it was easier that way rather than
I'm just putting it on the record.
delay. Yeah. So that's why they're here, well, they're not here, but the paperwork is here tonight. And it will be going to the select board for their final approval.
Anybody have any questions for Joanne from the board members?
Well, is this kind of like putting the horse before the cart? Or the cart before the horse? Before the select board say anything, we should...
The select board won't say anything. If it had gone to the select board first, they would have reviewed it and maybe they would have asked some questions because usually the applicant or the owner goes to the select board meeting, where here we're just looking at paperwork.
Well, what I'm getting at is the select board has questions and we go ahead with this tonight. Is that, like I said, is that the cart before the horse?
You're not approving anything.
Oh, all right.
This
You're
is
just
just if this board recommends it.
Oh, I got you, okay.
It's
In
not,
this-
this isn't an application.
So let's just make it clear, in this case, the selectmen have the authority to grant permission to build on Class 6 roads and private roads.
Okay.
Only by this process does the select board normally get the application first and then give it to the planning board for comment. Do we have anything we'd like to say about it?
Okay.
And if I could just bring you up to date, that the law has changed this past year about Class 6 roads. So whenever someone comes before the town to build on a Class 6 road, from now on, they will need to show proof that both the land and the structures can be insured, whereas that's something new this year. But it does not pertain to private roads, only Class 6.
That seems kind of like backwards of what Concord's been doing lately.
Well, since Concord made this new rule, and invariably you cannot, sounds like you cannot deny permission to build on a Class 6 road, because it's been, the way I read the law, they granted it legally through an RSA.
Yes, they did.
So I don't see any point in the select board sending comments to us for requests for comments on a Class 6 road, because it's legal.
Well, there's also another snag to it, is that if the selectmen decide, we don't have this, but if the selectmen decide to adopt a policy about building on a Class 6 road, then they don't need planning board comment in the future. But the selectmen have not done that. I don't think they've even talked about it. So, but if they do in the future, then the process will change slightly. But in this case, we're looking at a private road.
I
They don't
understand.
need to show proof of insurance.
Can you explain this page? Like, it has Phil's name on it.
I saw that just
It's an
a few
old-
minutes
it's
ago.
an old version
It's a-
of
yeah,
the-
it's not an
the
updated
municipal
version.
liability. Basically,
Yeah, yeah.
On it too.
yeah, it's just, it looks like an older.
Is this something they provided or something you provided?
It's like
This
three
is a
pages.
town form. I don't know where this came from.
So should that be updated?
I think
yes.
it should all be updated, because the selectmen are no longer Scott Gross, Steve Forney, Nick, Dave, or Phil.
Right, I'm just
I
asking.
think you as a selectman should handle this.
This will be,
Next point.
Pretty outdated form.
yeah,
It's just-
I don't know why it's
And none
in
of
there.
it's
but
filled in yet, so.
It will be a new form once the selectmen see this.
I just think the planning board needs to have a discussion at a later date regarding any request about the Class 6 roads, because as a rule, we always say no, and as a rule, the selectmen always say yes. So I think we should just tell them we don't want to comment anymore, as far as I'm concerned.
Why do you say no?
Well, it's
No,
required.
because we have problems with residents who build on Class 6 roads. We have one across from the Irving Station that is using the bottom half of the road. It was never granted permission to use the bottom half of the road that I know of. It was, I don't want to go into it right now.
No, it's okay,
No,
Tim.
no,
We
we're not-
actually have one in front of the select board now.
No.
It was a discussion, but I did notice in one of the other action items that we have tonight, there are some adjustments according to Class 6 roads. in here that I think would be
That's-
advantageous.
Per the new statute.
Yes.
Okay, well, we'll move on to that later. All right, so does anybody have any comments regarding the request for comments to build on a private road, Allard Park Road?
I just have one comment.
Phil?
Well, it just seems to me that if they've already been, received the approval from DES for a 4-bedroom septic system, that's probably the most important part of the project, or one of the important parts of the project, and they already have that, so.
DES very rarely denies septic approval, so.
Okay, well, the lot's just 1 acre short of a 5-acre lot, which you cannot deny on anything 5 acres or larger, so it doesn't matter.
Well, that's kind of my point, that I think it's moved to,
Probably
Really have a
down
negative.
there, too.
Will this be the first homes off of that?
No, there's several homes down
There's
there
at
now.
least 2 beyond where this one will be.
I know, I think there are, and there's also the old building that was is the batting house now for
So
the
this,
ball field.
this home is going on the lot with the ball field. The ball field's going away.
What's gonna happen for Allard Park?
They're not even using it this spring.
If the ball field has been closed.
Yeah.
How come we don't have Babe Ruth baseball in Goffstown anymore?
It was actually the high school team, I think, that was playing
The
down there.
fields next to the
JV.
former Villa Augustina is Gulfstown Junior Baseball.
I know about that, David. Goffstown, Babe Ruth always played ball at Allard Park, as long as I took my kid down there.
for years.
So where does Babe Ruth play now?
I don't know.
That sheds new light on it.
So there are homes down there, this is additive homes off the same private road that's already maintained by someone else.
Yes.
Yes. I don't know who maintains it.
They do.
I got nothing.
It's not the best road.
I'm disappointed we don't have the ball fields down anymore, considering all the work that the volunteers put into that field down there.
I was down there just the other day. The grass is like this high.
The Lions Club has a sweet field available for purchase. Isn't that right, Dave?
All right, we're
I'd
gonna
rather
move on,
not-
we're gonna move
I'd
on
rather
to
not
comments.
discuss.
We're off topic here about anything else. So, the ball field's closed, that's good to know. All right, board members, does anybody want to make a recommendation, or are we gonna say no comment?
Plead the fifth.
No comment.
Okay, the plan, is that the general, let's take a straw vote. Dave, comment or no comment?
No comment.
Richard?
See no evil here, no evil. No
Tim?
comment.
I'm saying no comment.
I don't have a vote.
No comment.
Okay, Joanne, the official statement from the planning board is no comment.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. That's the end of correspondence and action items that I can see. The application that was on for tonight is on for June 11th, 18 West Union Street. We'll talk about that when the time comes. All right, Joanne, what is the next
Okay.
item on our agenda?
So the next item is the update of the rules and regulations of the planning board. We had seen this several months ago, and there were some comments that board members had made. I updated the changes, and this is the final document. I just wanted you to take a look at it. And
Can you tell us what changes were made for those of us that have seen this for a long time?
I don't have the red line copy with me. It was minor. Let me see if I can figure it out.
Do you want this one?
Oh, you have it. Oh, no, that's the development regs. I'm talking about the rules and regulations.
I'm sorry.
Um,
Apologize.
I believe it was the order, one of the items was the order of business. So that would be on page 4 at the bottom. Just wanted the order in a different order than had,
Article 8, meeting order?
yes. We just switched things around if we could change anything. And then we added the Pledge of Allegiance.
Where'd you add it?
It's number 3.
Oh, thank you, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the form. Anybody see any issues with what Joanne has presented us with?
I went through it earlier, Tim, no.
Okay, Joanne, move on, please.
I'm sorry, what?
Would you like to move on?
Sure, if you're okay with this and you'd like to adopt it, you can do so, otherwise we can,
I think since we just got it in our hand tonight, I think we should move this to the next
Okay.
meeting, June 11th, and everybody has a chance to read it. If anybody
Sure.
has any problems, they can bring it back. We also have 2 voting members, elected members that are not here to see it, so I choose to have them see it before we vote on it.
okay. Okay, so the next item is the development regulations that we've been working on for quite some time now. And this hopefully is the final copy. I'll go over with you what we've changed since you last saw it. So the very first page will be eliminated. I didn't go in here and accept any of the red line changes yet, so for now, just bear with me while I get to that point. But for now, the cover sheet will be page 2, the second page in.
What's going to be page 1 then, Joanne?
That will be page 1. This will be the cover sheet.
Oh,
This
oh,
one is
the new
Yeah.
version on the back side of it?
correct,
Okay,
with
thank
the
you.
correct names on there.
The document was being very finicky, right?
Yes,
Like, there's
for
2
sure.
cover pages.
I would like you to confirm that Jim Raymond is going to be an alternate because Dave is resigning and has given his notice and he's listed as an alternate on there. I want to make sure you get the correct alternate.
Right, but we don't have anything from Jim yet, and...
I'm just asking you to reach out to him or
Oh,
something.
sure, yeah, okay.
Because David's been nice to stay, but he said he'd like to go, and I think we should have staff reach out to Jim Raymond.
We'll see Jim at CIP next week.
Okay.
Okay, so then we'll go all the way to page 51.
51.
And there's a section that's under number 6, and it says roads and utility construction may start with a bond. However, a bond for infrastructure, including roads and utilities, must be in place prior to sale of any parcel or an application for a building permit for structures.
They seem to conflict each other.
So this is another one of the items that the law has changed.
Oh, this is statutory
Yeah.
language?
Correct.
Okay, as long as it's fine.
We once said you have to have a bond in place before you can start any construction, and now
We know the legislature changed it.
taken that ability away. So
They can basically start road construction and then just keep working. The second they want to either sell a parcel or apply for a building permit is when they would need a bond in place for the remainder of the work.
Yeah, there was a reason why we did it the way we did it, because we had many developers come in, they go in, they clear, they do all their
Yeah.
timber club, they get all the money from the timber, and they leave it like that.
Yeah,
And
and
there's no bond.
unfortunately, that at the state level, they've kind of handcuffed us to this new
Right,
procedure.
right, so that they leave us holding the bag.
Yeah, exactly.
okay, page 52 at the top under number 3. This was something that Scott and I added.
53
Page
now?
50, I'm sorry, I can't, for some reason, I can't read this. Page 52. At the
3 at the top.
Number 3. Separate escrow for outstanding items prior to issuance of certificate of occupancy. So we just changed the language some to make it coincide with the process that we're using currently. If the project is not completed by the time the certificate of occupancy permits are issued, they will need to post an escrow, just like the one that you're handing back tonight for the multifamily project. It could be because of the weather's changing and it's too late in time to do some of the outdoor items or the plantings or things like that. So they do have to provide 100% of the cost of those items, and then it will be returned once
Is
the
this
work is
redundant,
completed.
Joanne? If you go back to page 51, number 5,
Page 50?
51, the one we were just on.
Oh, okay.
Number 5 there, landscape surety estimate shall be provided. Surety. They're pretty similar, right?
Yeah.
Why don't we leave them alone, Scott, because it gives us more teeth.
Yeah, I have no
Even if they
problem.
seem like they're redundant, it, it gives us,
As long as they don't, neither of them contradict each other, is the only thing I'd be concerned about.
Oh, you know what it was, too? I think it was the order, because the first item, initially it started with release of the security, but this said acceptance, and we added and release of security, so we moved the security process down under, to have that first. In other words, first you collect it, then you release it.
why do we release security for landscaping, Joanne?
Because they've gone ahead and done the plantings, we
Oh, see, here's the problem.
give them back their money.
Here's the problem. When the stuff dies, we have no way to get them to replant it.
Well, that's another, if you wanted to go that route, that would be a whole nother process where you would collect a certain amount of money for a specific time, usually it's 2 years. But like in the town of Bedford, their regulations say, they don't collect money for it, but their regulations do say that these plants must always be alive.
So what do we say?
We just,
What do we say about dead trees and done projects?
it does say that they have to be maintained and, but there's no teeth to it. There's,
So money is
no one goes
teeth.
out and checks it on
Money is teeth.
a regular
So how about
basis.
a permanent bond for the project that is for the landscaping, so that if the landscaping was to fail, the planning board could use bond funds to pay to have it done, or
I
get
don't
them
know
to
if
do it?
you can collect a permanent bond. I've never seen a permanent bond
Go.
collected for
Well,
landscaping.
I think there's one issue with that, though. The person that puts up the bond sells the property.
Hmm.
Now what?
Well, we just went through it with the dome, because I remembered it, and I brought it up, and it got entered into discussion. Now, if I wasn't a member on the board anymore, it might have gone by the way of the dodo bird.
Well, my point being is, does the person,
It has to be from the new person.
so that would have to be refunded to the seller and then collected from the buyer? I mean,
I don't know.
that seems to be a process that seems to be a nightmare to kind of, to me, it just seems like
But
it's
if
gonna
it's
fall through
in
the
escrow
cracks.
instead, that we hold.
Phil, I don't think we should be looking for ways to let people out of not fulfilling their site plan
Yeah,
obligations.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
But that's what we're doing with
And-
the discussion we're having right now.
I can tell you in Bedford so say for instance, someone had a plan 5 years ago, they put the trees in, a few of them died, they didn't bother to replace them. Then someone else came along and purchased the land and changed up the business to something else. Bedford would not let them go further with any sort of updated plans unless things were brought up to the, how the final plan was approved. Everything would have to.
Once again, we have to wait for
Place.
someone else to buy the property to have any teeth to get dead trees replaced.
And we don't have the staff for that. We don't even have a code enforcement.
So why should we do
officer.
it then? Why do we require that landscaping be permanent? Why don't we just let it all die and they can cut it all down and we don't care?
Well,
Because that seems to be
we
the
should
attitude of
care.
the town.
I don't know if it's the attitude, but we just don't have the manpower.
We have a code enforcement officer, right?
Okay.
Our selectman rep, do we have a code enforcement officer?
I haven't seen it,
You haven't seen a code enforcement officer?
that I've seen. or
Is it
discussed.
in the budget for a code enforcement officer?
We used to have a separate person that just
I
did
understand that.
code enforcement. Now we have a building inspector / code enforcement.
And we had a second position, and that got cut, I believe, in the budget
That-
committee
A
process.
part-time, not a part-time, but a
So we
another
have,
full-time.
so we don't have anybody on code enforcement for the town of
Not
Goffstown.
dedicated,
Is that, yeah, not dedicated, but that is part of Jack's title, isn't it?
but there was a second position, I believe, open, and that was a discussion of the budget committee.
Just a question. on
That's
that.
correct. Yeah.
In the past, when we had issues like this, we had reached out to other towns, and other towns have done it with us, where we shared a person. Is that something that might be able to be looked at?
That's a selectman question, not a complaint.
No, I was bringing that up because we have a member here that is a member of the board.
Are you talking about code enforcement? Because typically, if you cover for each other, it's typically it would be building inspection.
Inspection.
Well, I'm just
believe
thinking of a
there's-
possibility of how to do something that everybody says we don't have. Just looking for another way of getting something done.
Well, if you cut the position, if the position was cut at the select board level by budget committee suggestion, then the funding for a separate person was cut. Obviously, there is a code enforcement officer in town that is either unable to find the time or something. I don't understand what the problem is.
I think what happened was, again, the law changed for default budgets, and if you had a position in your budget that was not filled,
Right.
the
Within a year.
following year, you could not continue including that position.
Where'd that come from, Concord?
Yep. Concord.
It's a full-time job to keep up with these law changes. It really is. It's crazy.
Well, it's time to think about something else then, folks. Because if we don't have a code enforcement officer for our town that's out doing the job, then the town is remiss because we make these rules, we have things to look at, we have complaints to be dealt with, and if no one's doing it,
I think what he's
Nobody's
doing,
saying that Jack's not doing it or whatever, I just think.
I'm not saying that.
I
Yeah.
think what he's
Yes,
doing
yes.
is he's responding to complaints. He's not out there looking at seeing
Okay.
if there's something and
All right,
going
I'm going to
after it.
drop it because I could,
No, I think it's
I could
it's
be
a
in-
valid discussion, Tim. I think the question is, can we even put something in for escrow or otherwise?
That might be a question for town council or the lawyers specifically.
I'll see if I can get an answer on
And I
that.
think the enforcement piece is another side of the coin.
Well, on the same side of that, with this bond and escrow stuff, if the person sells before, if the vegetation or whatever, the planting dies before he sells, why can't we just make him replant it before he sells?
We don't
Or
always
release the
know,
bond?
we don't always know when they sell, that's part of the problem.
Okay.
Yeah. They don't sell us.
Yeah,
No, I understand that, but what
well,
I'm
you
saying,
stated that Bedford knows, so how does Bedford know?
Well, when they come in with the new plans.
Oh,
that's
new
how-
plans.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, maybe there's like a halfway thing, like you said Bedford requires them to have it for 2 years, why, but there's no escrow or bond, why couldn't we require an escrow or bond for a
Bedford
2-year period?
requires it for the life of the project,
Yeah.
and they will go out and enforce it if it's
Yeah.
dead.
But instead of like a bond in perpetuity, if the plants generally last the first couple of years, they're probably hardy enough to continue on. We could at least try that. I don't know.
So is there a requirement, Joanne, just that they have to have the plants or the vegetation for the life of the project? Is that what the requirement is?
Yes.
Okay. But there's no bond or escrow or
I
anything?
don't believe there's a bond or anything like that. But like Hooksett has a 2-year where they take in an escrow and they hold it for 2 years. And then at the end of the 2 years, someone goes out there and checks the plants to make sure they're still alive. And if they're not, most of the time they just say, go replace that and then we'll give you back your money. They don't bother taking it from the escrow, but, and then when you have an escrow like that, you have to deal with the bank and you have to prove that it was dead. There's like a whole process that you have to go through. You can't just take the money and spend it. But
It doesn't sound like Bedford's going out and enforcing it if you're saying they're only recognizing it based upon when somebody else purchased the place and brings it back.
I think if it was something that was really like in the center of the little village there and it was a large,
Then they would mandate that.
yeah, but if it's just something that's like, oh, there's a little bush dead. but they're very strict on many things, Bedford, and they have a historic district, and they decide on the color paint you're putting on the building and all of that. Their regulations are
Well,
much
we're talking
more
about
strict.
Bedford, let's stop talking about Bedford, let's talk about Goffstown.
Okay.
So I drove by Dearborn Village, Scott, and all the trees are dead down there now.
We have a bond for that stuff, so.
Okay.
Do you want to
they need
move on?
replant it
Yeah, I'd like
if
to
they-
move on.
Okay.
If they release that, if they want that released. I've already reached out to her and
I know, this is another subject.
there was a comment back that, oh, so-and-so said they're not dead, they just need to fertilize, and I didn't even respond to that email.
We're not gonna go there. I should not have brought it up.
Page 55, under number 5. All inspections required by the town of Goffstown for release of a bond must be completed within 30 business days of written request delivered by hand or sent by courier. Notification by the town of noncompliance shall be sent within 15 business days. This comes from the new language of the state, so that, I guess people are waiting a long time to get their money back. We'd never have a problem with that here, but now it's in there.
We do have a statement that says in the landscapes section that they have to replace any dead or dying plants, but there's no, like you said, no enforcement or anything.
So the final line, all bonds shall be released within 90 days of final sign-off. And final sign-off is the end of it. Okay, so it's not within 90 days, it's after the final sign-off.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on that one from everybody? Okay, Joanne, you're next.
Okay, this is page 62. This has to do with active and substantial development. So you know how currently you have, so someone comes in, say they have a site plan, they have it approved, the chair signs it, it gets recorded. If they don't start the development within 1 year, you know how they have to come back here and ask for an extension? Well, that's totally against state law. It used to be that they would have, I think it was like 2 years.
Well, almost 2 years.
And now they've raised it to 3 years. So active and substantial development has to occur, which is, we have a definition for that in our regulations. So all this is doing is changing the amount of time that someone has to start the project and finish the project in order to be grandfathered from zoning changes. And it does not apply to like things like public safety, those things they always have to comply to the newest. However, for purposes of this paragraph, or a couple paragraphs here, this is just quoting the law that's now in effect.
And this is
So-
only related to subdivisions,
And
not
site-
site plans.
Both, yeah.
Well, how come it doesn't say it in there?
If you keep going on to the next page, it says, I'm sorry, not the next page, the further down, I think.
I think it should be
says-
I think it should be right next to A. Every
said-
subdivision
it's in the-
and,
It's in the same paragraph.
It's in D.
It says site plan review regulations, impact fee ordinances, zoning ordinances, subdivision plat, and deeds, and every site plan. It's in the first sentence. Every subdivision plat approved by the planning board and properly recorded in the registry of deeds, and every site plan approved by
Okay,
the
thank you.
planning board. And the reason they wrote it that way is because site plans no longer get recorded at the registry of deeds.
now what about our prior process of the site plan, a site plan that is not even started has to come in for an extension within 1 year? Is that still happening?
So yes, this covers that. This
What does it
gives them
say?
3 years.
Now it's 3 years?
Yes,
By state statute?
yes.
So we don't do
You
the
don't
1
need
year
to do the
renewal?
1 year any longer.
Okay.
And
thank you.
in
They can
fact,
sit
that
on our
was
hands
not,
longer.
that was not legal anyway.
Why not?
It was 2.
Because the law changed a few years ago, or more than a few years ago, actually, quite a while ago.
Well, the last one we had that had to
2
come in for
years.
that was Donner, I remember next to the library, that was the last one that ever had to come in for that.
Yeah, and well, because your regulations were from 2015,
Right.
so. Okay, so that's that.
So what, is that all, this is all state
It's all state language.
State language now. How about A, B, C, D, and E? Is that part of the state language?
Yeah, the whole thing is,
The
yeah.
entire section?
So for a total, you have 7-year period, and the 3-year exemption shall apply to any approvals granted on or after July 1st, 2023. So it's, even though this is just taking effect, it goes back to 2023.
So the 3 years is already up on some of these.
So is the 7 years that's when they have to be completed by?
Yeah.
Okay.
But the 3-year, where's the 3? Is that gone? Yeah, the A. Within 3 years after the date of approval, and we're going back to July 1st of '23. So something that was approved on July 1st of '23 only has until July 1st of this year
Yeah,
before it's non-compliant. They have to follow new zoning regulations.
correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the next one, Barbara had asked for this. This is on page 72, under letter N at the very bottom, Class 6 road development. We just moved it to another section further in, you'll see the change, but she just didn't think it belonged in that section.
So it's out of that page 72, it's
Correct.
somewhere else.
And
It's on
moved
page 83 now.
83.
80. Is that where we're going next, Joanne, or
No.
is there something in between?
There's something in between.
The in-between, oops, is on page 83. No, it goes right to it.
What about all the stuff on 76 that's redlined?
Right, you have 76 and 77.
76.
I think there was some red line things in the
Yeah, there
previous
was.
copy that you had.
That was already in there.
Okay.
And then,
So we're going right past that outer 50 feet stuff?
I take that back. This language on page 76 and 77 comes from our zoning ordinance having to do with wetlands that was inserted into the zoning ordinance maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And Kimberly, when she was here at the meeting where we were reviewing these, she asked that it also be included in this document.
Okay.
So that's why that's there.
So
But the
it's-
language is the same. Page 83 now has a section for the Class 6 roads, which requires the waiver of liability as well as the proof of insurance, and then the private road development, which is
And
what
that
we
is
just
from
saw
state
this
state
evening.
language also, Joanne?
Yes.
Is the numbering / lettering off for,
Yes, I see
E.
2-2.
should that be A and B? And then on F, is the numbering off there too? Because it looked like it was an exact copy of what was on page 73, but now has a number and then letters subsequently after.
Yeah, good call.
Okay, I'll check that.
So the section E has to, the 2 becomes a 3, the third one?
I think that may be supposed, the second two, I think is supposed to become A, and the one below it, I think is supposed to be B, Tim. The language has changed here in E overall compared to what it was in the previous section on page 73. But this is mainly because we're asking for them to sign the liability waiver, which I think was funny, because it was like this liability waiver here that seems to be wrong, that needs to be updated.
So they need to show the liability waiver as well as proof of the insurance,
Correct.
unless you have a policy, which, like I said before, so far we don't have one.
I would like to see, when we talk about Class 6 development, I would ask the selectmen to please review the planning board minutes of the discussion that is had before they sign the final waiver. Because when the applicant for the property across from Irving was at the planning board. The applicant stated on the record that I remember, and it was backed up by his lawyer when I read the minutes, that they only wanted to ever use the top half of the road for access to the site. And then, because when the Class 6 road waiver was issued, I reviewed that with our town administrator, and there's no mention of any of the planning board discussion in what was permitted and not permitted. Therefore, since it was never transferred to the document that the resident was issued, the resident has the right now to use the whole road, apparently.
Understood, that may have been a bit before my time.
I understand that, but that's something I would ask the selectmen to pay close attention to.
Not a problem, happy to have that.
Thank you.
I think that in general, considering that we're already dealing with a Class 6 on something else right now, I think most of the select board is aware of some of these challenges.
And if you are going to ask the planning board for comment, which you probably will, the planning board would probably provide comment if it was going to be incorporated into a selectman's decision, I'm certain.
Yeah, I think that we would take that comment, Tim,
Sure.
and I do believe that for the most part, we've already started saying that a liability waiver is needed no matter what, which you'll find here in the regulations as well.
Thank you.
So the next page, which is 84, it says notes at the top of the page. Under number 3, the word granite was added for granite curbing at the beginning of the sentence.
Which was at the request of this board at the last.
Yes.
And I think I'm opposed to that because the town is allowed to use bituminous curbing on town roads, and we're going to force the developers to use granite curbing. I know it's a better curbing, I know it costs more, but developers are always screaming about what it's going to cost them, and I think having a double standard makes us look bad as a board, and having our development regulations if the town is not going to adhere to our regulations and build their own roads to our regulations.
Is this specific areas that the granite curbing is required to be
It
used?
says all proposed roadways right there in plain English.
Is that,
They have the right to request a waiver.
They do have a right to request a waiver.
Grant that in specific
And
instances.
it's only where curbing is installed. I mean, many of our roads have no curbing whatsoever.
Every new road has to have curbing.
Even on the back roads.
You have to have closed, if you're gonna build a new road for a subdivision, according to our
Oh, okay.
regulations, you need to collect it and close drainage so that it can then go to treatment. and-
So let's talk about that, since we're on that subject. The state of New Hampshire told us via your department a long time ago that the state of New Hampshire does not recommend closed drainage systems anymore because it concentrates pollutants to a single outfall on any project.
So.
They want sheet flow so the grass can cleanse the stormwater.
So, we don't, we have an MS4 permit.
Yep.
It is EPA permit that we need to follow in terms of what we need to do to treat, collect and treat stormwater. In 2021, the select board approved a stormwater ordinance that gave DPW the ability to write the stormwater standards. DPW basically took the wording that EPA requires and created the stormwater standards. Those have not been adopted because they contradict stuff that's in the existing development regulations. Once these development regulations are adopted, then the stormwater standards can then be adopted as well. So basically what EPA is telling us is we have to treat specific pollutants to a certain standard. So nitrogen and phosphorus, you need to have a reduction of like 60% of each of those pollutants. And the only way to really do that is to collect it, bring it to a treatment practice like a pond or some type of infiltration practice, and that removes the pollutants to a certain percentage. And then there's total suspended solids, which gets removed through either treatment swales, like Tim said, or riprap in the forebays of these ponds. So there are ways to send water to open channels, but then at some point it needs to get collected to get brought to the pond where the treatment of those contaminants. So phosphorus and nitrogen both cannot be removed from open channel alone. They need to be in a pond where they're either infiltrated out or gravel wetlands use some complicated bio process that I'm not completely up to speed on, but, so that is why we require curbed roads and closed drainage on future projects.
And DES is,
Not DES, this is EPA, these are EPA regulations. And honestly, DES requires a lot of this stuff because they have,
well, then
they
they've
have
changed their,
treatment standards too.
they've changed their tune then, Scott, because they
DES is very, I don't know,
wishy-washy.
yeah, they're tough to work with sometimes.
Well, anyway, that was my last understanding about stormwater management.
I mean,
They wanted grass swales and such to treat the stormwater and not
Which-
discharge pollution.
I mean, on some of our back roads, it might make sense, but when you talk about like Penardville and,
Where is DPW requiring themselves to put granite and not requiring themselves to put granite?
so if you're talking about Elm Street, that was the select board that voted to go with the bituminous versus granite. Now, in other instances, like in the east parts of town, on the hilly areas, we specifically choose the granite, or the asphalt berm over granite, because those roads are narrow in nature and tend to be higher speeds, so it's more forgiving. Newer subdivisions, we kind of want to be slower speeds, right? If we're having these cul-de-sac neighborhoods and things like that. So granite isn't as much of a hazard, like cutting tires and things like that.
No, I understand that. I guess my question is to Tim's point, there's a mandate that granite curbing is required here.
So that was decided last time we were here. That wasn't in the regs before the last time we were talking about this.
Was it
I don't remember
who?
who said it shall be granite, but it's somebody on this board. I don't know.
Well, it sure wasn't me.
Don't put me.
I don't remember who it was.
What's it me?
Well,
If this board wants to change it,
no, I want to have a discussion about it. Scott.
maybe, I think someone mentioned, I don't know if it was Tim, but maybe it's in specific instances it can be required.
It has
Maybe that's
its good points. Vertical granite curbing prevents people from parking in their front yards, which now I live on a street where the people park in their front yards because they don't have enough parking because of the one parking spot per rule thing, and they got more tenants and they're all parking on the edge of the road now. Vertical granite curbing stops people from jumping the curb and parking in their front yards. We don't have it down on some projects we approved lately, and it's apparent when you drive through there and look at the projects.
We didn't require it on the most recent one.
I am in favor of granite curbing. I'm just not in favor of the town having a pass on it.
But wasn't it just that one time that they?
And I'm a taxpayer just like all the rest of the people at this
A
table.
lot of the newer so the Penardville neighborhood that's kind of up on the hill, most of those roads didn't previously have curb, and those are mostly getting, all of those are getting asphalt berm, not granite.
They're getting berm curbing, which everybody drives right up and over. Even a proper asphalt curb is hard to drive over when you use different mold.
Yeah,
The other curb mold.
6.5-inch tall.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which-
I think they call it park curb
Which is
versus
what you
the
put
Cape Cod
on Elm
berm.
Street.
Yes, well, you need that against sidewalk and.
That's right, to hold the pavement on the
Yeah.
sidewalk.
So my problem on this, yes, Steve?
I'm waiting for this conversation to end.
Why, you got something else you want to say?
Joanne, while we're on page 84, at the top of 84 is a number
Get it out.
of notes. Do these notes only apply to paragraph F, private roads?
Those notes actually apply to that table, so they should go ahead of the,
Table on page 82.
yes. So those, Joanne, those need to go back below the table ahead of the class 6
And,
road
okay,
development.
that'll be resolved.
Yeah.
You have a paragraph F at the end of 83, and then you have a second paragraph F on 84, so.
Yeah, Joshua already pointed out that the it seemed to follow the previous section it was cut out of and pasted here.
Yep, you
So,
administrative.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he's pointing out the larger ones are also messed up too, which I did not point out.
oh, I thought you were, I circled all of them because
Yeah.
I noticed that,
John, I'll have to go through them and just renumber them and re-letter them. So Joshua, we can go back to what you were gonna ask about.
Yeah, my challenge with 3 in the notes is that at one point in the first sentence, it basically says that granite curbing shall be installed.
and then it says we should be
But then it says
reviewed.
location and style shall be reviewed by town staff. Those are contradictory. If you're not giving a choice, then it basically should say that waivers will be considered based on a case-by-case basis.
Why don't we change it to curbing shall be installed in proposed roadways. Location and style shall be reviewed by planning board, reviewed and approved by the planning board.
Agree, second.
Give this board the option to say
You know,
whether we want
We just had a
granite.
vote on this a few meetings back. That's how that got in here.
Style is not,
But it's-
style is not necessarily
Material.
granite versus asphalt either, because there's different
There's
styles
slope
of granite
granite,
curbing.
there's
There's slope
slope
granite
granite.
and vertical granite, so there's different styles of
And there's
granite
also like
curbing.
4 molds for asphalt.
Okay, so you're saying that this is regardless, but location and style of granite curbing is required.
Can you change style to a different word?
I think we should add in that, waivers will be considered. That would get it away from it. You can put down that granite shall be installed on all proposed roadways, and you can put in there that upon review by the planning board, waivers may be requested.
There you go.
Agreed, seconded.
You already seconded, nobody made a motion, so you.
Okay, well,
You can make a motion.
I make a motion, we take out the latter half of number 3 and replace it with what Tim said, waivers will be considered on a case-by-case basis, or waivers will be considered.
I'm not
To
sure.
me, that's just weakens everything.
I mean, technically, anything in here you can request a waiver for.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's true.
I don't think it should be in there because
I
that
think you're
is leading people to request the
You'll
waiver.
definitely get a lot more.
I think we
Everybody will request it.
I think
to
we
be-
just leave it alone
Thank you.
and deal with it. One time, when it comes up.
I'm sure you're gonna get the waiver requests.
I'm sure we will.
So
So we're gonna leave it alone, Joanne, the way
when
you
you
have
say
it written
leave it
in.
alone, you want granite to stay
Yeah,
there?
and then the style and location piece to stay as well.
Yeah, just leave it alone, don't change anything, now that we've beat it up. Okay, what's next? What do you have, EF for staking and FG for roadway construction? What do those letters mean?
That's just.
Oh, those are
The
your new,
Those are the bullet numbering.
oh,
That-
okay.
And then, so at some point they changed and because track changes is on, it crosses out what the old letter was, but they're all messed up anyway.
Joanne's gonna have to redo all them.
Joanne, you took note of the fact that these notes need to move ahead of the
Yeah,
other
see,
fees, okay.
I don't want to change anything until we're finished with the text. And then once I
Yeah,
accept
no,
the
this-
text, it'll go into place.
This Word file is
It's
a
'cause it's-
bear to work in.
yeah, it's really
The
horrid.
changes I made were driving me insane with the numbering and it was yeah.
So it wasn't pleasant.
Yeah.
Okay, the next one is on page 87, where it says at the bottom, B1, concrete sidewalk shall utilize a 6-inch by 6-inch welded steel wire fabric reinforcing mechanism.
You also skipped over number 4 up there.
Oh,
which this
sorry.
was wording I think that Barbara gave us.
Yes, this is changing the size of the sidewalk from,
So this is
4 to
requiring that
5 feet.
5 feet minimum width be maintained everywhere so that we can get the sidewalk plow through. So So basically, we require 6-foot sidewalks, but if you put a mailbox in there or a utility
You
pole.
still have to provide
They still
5.
have to provide the 5 feet so that our plows can get by.
So Joanne, what's inside the parentheses after, I see you've changed 5 with a line under it, and you crossed out 4, but then we have 54 next to it, so.
That 54, the 4 is crossed out, so in parentheses is like so you write the word out and then you put the number.
Okay, but I'm just
the
seeing,
number.
why is the 4 still in there? Because it was
It's
in
got a
there?
little cross out in it,
Well,
yeah.
it didn't have one of mine, I just crossed it out myself.
It's hard
Okay.
to tell.
It's hard to
because
see, 'cause it looks like
it's
where the-
line.
yeah,
Yeah,
four
it's
correspondence.
part
Line
of
and
the 4,
Okay, then we move down to concrete sidewalks shall utilize,
a 6-inch by
And
6-inch.
that just
that's
changed.
just standard procedure.
So what that was, I think Phil caught that, he asked that to be moved from the next bullet. If you flip the page over, that's where it used to be.
Right.
And I think we were kind of out of order. It wasn't in the order of operations of construction, so just to clean it up, yeah, just move
Are you
that.
dealing with handicap in this too, Scott? Is that in this section?
Um,
ADA compliance for,
Yeah, so number 4, all sidewalks shall be ADA compliant and constructed in accordance with public right-of-way access. So, that ProWag is kind of the Bible of,
and do you require, you have a specification for the truncated dome plates going in? Do you have a
it's in
requirement?
a detail, so
So you,
the standard details,
I'm just saying, do you have a standard for them?
we do,
And is your standard cast iron?
yes.
Thank you, that's all I
Yeah,
care about.
Yeah, no, somebody recently put plastic in and.
Fiberglass, they don't last, the plows wreck them.
And right on their plans, it said cast. And
Okay,
they-
so that's, the rest of the board don't need to hear about that.
They fought me on it. It's
That's stupid.
It's very stupid.
Okay, next, Joanne?
Page 92, numbers 3 and 5,
Oh, this was
This
at your
is
request. Tim.
language that Tim asked for concerning drainage for new driveways.
Mhm. So read it out. Scott, let Scott read it, because
Okay.
he knows what the story is with this.
So-
So number 3.
So number 3, no new or enlarged driveways shall temporarily or permanently divert drainage or increase runoff in any manner that, in the opinion of the town engineer, adversely affects any structures, road, sidewalks, or downstream properties. Any new or enlarged driveways that are determined by the town engineer to have an adverse effect will be required to provide stormwater controls to the satisfaction of the town engineer.
Good.
And I got this wording from another towns and kind of beefed it up a little bit. I don't recall which town it was, but actually I might have heard it.
Go ahead, read the next one.
Alright, so number 5, in accordance with NHRSA 236:10, the driveway applicant may be required by the town engineer to file a bond or letter of credit in the amount sufficient to cover the cost of construction of the portion of driveway within the right-of-way of the road, including the required culverts, ditches, other drainage structures, and paved apron, and to cover the cost of repairing public sidewalks and streets disturbed by construction. The bond or letter of credit shall be approved as to form the sureties by the town engineer. The amount of the bond or letter of credit shall be based on contractors' or engineers' estimate of the necessary construction and repair. The estimate shall be approved by the town engineer prior to obtaining the bond or letter of credit. All bonds or letter of credits shall be 100% of the estimated cost. The performance bond or letter of credit shall not be released until the town engineer has certified completion of the bonded construction and repairs in accordance with the standards stated in these regulations and in accordance with the approved driveway permit.
Do you have a lifespan of a bond or a letter of credit based on in a proposed amount? Do you have a 2-year term or anything?
For street opening permits, which is separate from this, we only have a 15-month. It
I only-
gets us through a winter season.
I only ask because in the case of the sports dome, we bonded the top coat paving, right, down there in the beginning?
And
Just, isn't that what we did in the beginning? We
I
gave them-
wasn't here for the beginning.
Okay,
I
well-
came in, but it's stuff, they have that and landscaping currently bonded.
Right, so what I'm trying to get at with you is that I think that in your DPW forms, I think you should set a time frame, because in the case of the top coat paving down there, that went on for 3 years at least. Now, if they bonded that for the price at the time, 3 years ago, it would have been, let's say, $60,000 to pave top coat.
It's a lot more now.
If that bond runs for 3 years and we don't have a review period within a time frame to upgrade the bond, then the bond would be insufficient to do the work. So I think you should discuss with Adam when you do your forms at your
That's
end,
very reasonable.
that you should have a time frame that the bond is good for.
I think
and-
it should
and
be
it's-
in here.
And a standard review time when you review it and revise it.
Joanne, we didn't, do you recall if we added a time frame to it? Because,
I don't see it there, in there.
okay. I think we'd have more teeth if it were in here. That if we say,
Let's put it this way, I would be happy, as a planning board member, to leave this to an administrative change that Scott would recommend to Joanne, and Joanne would add the time frame into this section without having to bring it back
let's
to the
just
board.
say a year right here. Does that sound?
I'll make that motion.
If they want to bond it, it's typically in the fall or winter.
So why
So
don't
if we give them a year to complete that, the next.
I understand that.
construction
So we're going to authorize the town engineer and Joanne to make a staff decision on a time frame and add it into the language after you flush out the words, and we'll accept whatever you put in there because we trust you to do it.
And what is this for?
A time frame to re-review the bond for accuracy,
And I think
Yeah,
this
but
is,
so the bond is for what?
for anything, for any type of work that you're bonding.
whether it's this driveway one that we were just talking
Whether
about.
it's a driveway or a
like-
parking lot or anything.
Or a site plan that
Because- But
needed,
it should go through the winter, is that correct?
yeah, that's why we're
There's a
saying.
minimum of 1 year.
Well, no, I want to
Yeah.
make sure that that's.
But I'm saying that if work is not completed within a prescribed time frame, then there's a schedule set up to review the bond on a schedule to upgrade the bond and require more funds be appropriated and added to the amount to cover the cost in the event that they default on the bond.
Okay. No, that's-
So there's a motion by Joshua, seconded by Bear, to administratively allow the staff to set up a time frame for bond review. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes. It's all yours.
I like how you did that, Tim. Giving them the ability to have
do
the
that a lot
teeth
of
to,
times. We do that
you
a lot of
know,
times.
I like how you thought that through.
Well, I've seen it happen, and I've seen people underfund a bond, and then when it comes time to use it, it's too late. We don't have it. All right,
If
so
you're going with
Joanne,
asphalt, and the asphalt price goes sky high next year.
okay, let's go to the next page while I
Sorry,
write up
go.
what we just did. Scott, is that you gonna do the fire department, or is that Joanne?
I can.
The fire department's been in there for a while, that's not new, but we can go over it.
I think
Go
this.
ahead, Joanne.
So they had asked for this language to be included, number 2, D2. When a bridge is required to be used as part of the driveway, it shall be designed, constructed, and maintained for a live load sufficient to carry the imposed loads of the fire apparatus. And number 3, must have a vertical clearance of not less than 13 feet 6 inches.
I think number 2 needs some more behind it.
Well, my
Just-
question on that is how do they know what the live load of the fire
I
apparatus is
I
and
think
does it change?
this should be,
They check with the fire department.
no, I think this is, it shall be designed, I want to say LRFD is the bridge code book, but I think it said it shall be designed and stamped by an engineer to,
Yeah.
basically.
This needs to be engineer stamped.
Yeah,
regardless.
it shall be designed and stamped by an engineer.
You know, I remember going through this stuff years ago when we had to replace bridges, and we were concerned about fire equipment getting onto the other side of town. And then the discussion came up of which vehicle it was, because
Exactly.
if you take like a tanker, the front of the tanker weighs less than the back of the tanker if the tanker is full.
Fully loaded, yeah.
Well, you know, how do you
Yeah.
do the weight?
So we just had a private bridge, have a dump truck go over it,
Last
and the
year.
dump truck ended up in a river last year, so. And that was a driveway bridge. That could have been our fire truck at the bottom of Bog Brook, so.
Is that the paving truck?
It was a local contractor, just I think it was a 10-wheeler, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
It wasn't a paver.
We're not talking about this.
No.
We're not talking about this.
Scott?
So, Scott, I just made a note, you said designed and stamped by the engineer of record? Or
Maybe it should be by a professional engineer.
By a professional,
Licensed professional.
Yeah.
a licensed professional engineer.
I'll make a motion
We may not be done doing it before you make the motion, Joshua.
Scott, the next line, next.
Wait a minute, we're not done with this line. Let's finish this line first. So Scott, what other adjustments to this line need to be made
So, let's see.
or eliminated?
I think it should say, it should be designed and stamped by a
licensed
licensed professional engineer and constructed and maintained.
No, just put a comma after licensed engineer.
Yeah.
Constructed, comma, and maintained for a live load sufficient to carry the imposed loads of fire apparatus. Does that put it all in there?
Yeah, I don't know if we want to design it for, I guess, fire apparatus. I don't know what else we would, you're not
Crane
gonna.
services, the only
Well,
next
I think
thing.
we should have a limit. I mean, well, we need to find out what the fire truck weighs.
So, the
Depends
thing
on
I.
what truck they're using.
Well, we need the heaviest truck for what we
Yeah.
load it for. We have to load it for the heaviest truck, which is the tower.
But like, I mean, I know it takes a long time before they replace the tower, but each time they do, it's a different number.
Well, it's not that much, they want another one in 5 years, so, but that's beside the point. The point is that when, this is gonna make it safe for the fire apparatus, and it's gonna make it unobtainable by the,
Yeah, I think,
by the people. They're gonna spend $300,000 to put a bridge in so they can get to their house. Then maybe they don't build there.
What about the weight of a full fuel oil truck?
It's probably less.
Where's
than
this coming
that.
from? This came from
this
the
came
fire
from the
department?
fire department. That's why I'm this is honestly the first time I noticed it, so I know Joanne said it's been in here for a little bit, but I don't recall reading this.
I mean, I think what they have personally is, well, it's kind of vague and it doesn't specifically say.
I think
what's
adding the-
here, I think.
adding the bit about a licensed professional
Yeah.
engineer, it makes the difference in the sentence.
Yeah.
Because now it's not just, Tommy Jones said it was, those beams are strong enough to carry a fire truck.
Someone's putting their license on the line, so they're going to design it to last.
And if it becomes cost prohibitive, then that's the problem of because they're gonna complain when the fire truck can't get across the bridge to put their house fire out.
Building bridges right now, you have to go through DES and their stream crossing rules. They're gonna spend a fortune. I don't think many people building a home.
So let's
are
leave
gonna
it,
build a
let's leave
bridge.
it with Scott's additional and stamped by a licensed professional engineer inserted between designed and constructed, and that at least puts us on the right path. Because we can change development regulations at any time, right, Joanne? Without a town vote.
You just need a hearing.
Right.
You don't need a hearing, but it's
So
highly
if this
recommended.
became insufficient in the next, 1 year from the time we adopt this, we can change it at any time.
Yes.
All right, so why don't we just let it roll with this?
Yeah.
David, did you want anything else changed to that line?
You want the next one down, he said.
Yes, the next, number 3, vertical clearance on a driveway. Does that specification belong anywhere else concerning a driveway, or is it only applicable to a fire apparatus?
Well, 13.6 does apply to everything, Dave, like you're saying, it applies to You know, power lines are set higher than that.
Yeah, I'm not sure. That number must be specific to their tallest apparatus.
So are there,
They don't have anything 13.6.
I don't know, I
are
mean,
there
it
other
says,
typical vehicles that might exceed that?
Your standard telephone line has to be what, 13 feet?
No, it's gotta be
Or
higher
14,
than
14
14 feet. It
Yeah.
can't be 13.6, because that's a DOT
So-
standard federal.
Tractor trailers are.
Concrete delivery truck?
They're not that.
So I don't
I don't think they're that
understand.
tall.
Wouldn't just make it a
Anyways,
standard
my
14.
only point is, does that
I don't-
specification require placement
Joanne,
anywhere
I'll
else?
look at that and see if we should make it a higher vertical clearance.
Okay.
I don't think so, Scott.
I'll just double check what,
I know the fire department doesn't go higher than 13.6, but you can check with them.
yeah.
Uniformity.
All right, Joanne, we're gonna move on. What's next?
Do we need a motion to make that change?
No, we need a motion to make a change, Joanne?
No.
We're gonna
Okay.
vote on the
We still have to
completed
vote on
thing
it
anyway.
later.
Okay, so the next one has to do with cisterns. It's on page 99, under number 3. The cistern shall be made of concrete and shall have a minimum capacity of 30,000 gallons of available water for fire suppression operations. And then it says the exact capacity of the required tank shall be approved by the fire department after the developer/contractor provides the fire flow requirements outlined in NFPA 1.
Do we have a copy of that?
NFPA 1.
The fire department
Fire
does.
department.
I know.
I don't have a copy.
My point is, it's being referenced in here. And I was just asking if we had a
See,
copy.
they got it right here, number 2, shall be designed by
No,
a
we would
certified
refer them
licensed
to the
civil
fire
engineer.
department. Because we're
Oh,
not,
that's for they
They
care
don't
about
care
the
about
system.
bridges, but that's just thing. Now, where is it in the regulations that there is the option to put sprinklers in the house that the fire department offers?
well, I think it would be, let me see here. This is page 99.
Does it appear in our development regulations? That's what I'm trying to
Let's
get.
find page 98.
Probably should be a separate section.
Here's
Because we've
98.
had cistern regulations,
So-
and we haven't had a cistern put in years because of the
Cistern-
cost prohibitiveness of them.
Cistern regulations begin on page 98, and I would assume it would be in here, but let me just read it.
Yeah, but I think the question is where is it about the sprinklers?
We have, in the past, the fire chief, we used to have it clearly stated that there was an option to provide residential fire sprinkler systems in place of a cistern at the fire chief's discretion. And maybe that was just a verbal thing, but never in our development regulations.
There's a state law, again, that says that the town cannot mandate sprinklers unless they have a conversation about it and then the applicant agrees to do sprinklers versus a cistern, because the price of cisterns has gone through the roof.
I just got done saying that, Joe.
That's what they've been doing.
I don't see anything in this cistern section that says that they can.
I think you need to consult with the fire chief and find out how you're gonna insert this into the cistern standards and how he's gonna provide written authorization for an applicant to appeal to this fire department for residential sprinklers versus installing a cistern.
Okay.
And that doesn't require a whole new deal here. You can bring back a one-page addendum to the cistern standards, which you can vote on at any meeting after you have the conversation. There's something else about cisterns I wanted to ask you about. Is there any mention in here about easements for the town for cisterns? Remember we talked about that at prior meetings, Joanne?
Number 2, letter C, number 2.
Letter C, number 2.
Easement.
Okay,
This number. Sufficient space.
okay, good, as long as that's in there.
Future excavation, yeah.
There was one other thing I can't remember, so I'll think of it later and I'll remember it later. I don't want to hold this up. All right, Joanne, so can you advise us on the chief's statement on that when the time comes?
Yes.
Thank you. What's next?
Okay, so that was page 99. Now we're at page
101.
101. And that has to do with the open space standards.
Would you like to?
Now,
would you
this,
like-
this was supposed to be written by the Open Space Committee, but they ran out of time and they never got back to it. So I just took the language under purpose and objectives. I took the exact language that they had updated last year and inserted it and referred to the zoning ordinance. And then under B,
Could you read it to us and we'll all listen to you read it to us?
sure. The purpose and objectives are as stated within the zoning ordinance. The purpose and objectives of the open space ordinance is to allow and encourage alternative subsection designs that encourage the preservation of open space and Goffstown's rural character and permit the efficient layout of the roads, utilities, and other public and private infrastructure that are less costly to build and maintain while providing owners of private property with a method for realizing the inherent development value of their real property in a manner that allows substantial benefit to the environment.
Thank you.
And under B, site analysis, I added under C, vernal pools.
In addition to water areas such as streams, ponds,
Yes. because I know
and
that-
vernal pools, is that how it should read?
Yes, because
Okay.
I know that you always ask for that.
It's written kind of funny. I don't know if it's just the way that the track changes is doing it.
You just
but
need,
Yeah,
you need
it-
to have
to get
it,
inserted up into that sentence.
It'll get inserted up
Yeah.
in there. And then, I took this out because I didn't like it. It said, under density determination and yield plan, under letter C, number 1, it says, the allowed density shall be as required in the zoning ordinance for a single-family use of the property. Left that alone. Then I removed board approval of a different number of dwelling units than first applied for will not be considered a significant material change.
and what did
And I
that mean?
eliminated that.
What did that
because
mean?
It means that if they decided to go with a different number than what was originally approved and shown on the yield plan, that they could go ahead and they don't need to
Like without approval?
further approval, which I
That's odd.
don't know why that's even in there. I don't know where it came from, but I didn't agree with it, so I didn't feel it was needed, so I,
I guess
asked for
if it was
your
The only way
comments.
that would be worth leaving in there is if they reduce the number.
Reduce,
Because they
yeah.
certainly can't increase the number.
Right. Well, that's, you want to change it to say that then?
No, I'm just trying to figure out why
That
it
makes
was
sense.
eliminated.
So Tim, you're saying just leave it the way it is when she kicked that
Well-
out? Just leave
It's a
that
weird
first
sentence.
I think it would say, board approval of a reduced number of dwelling units than the first applied for will not be considered a significant material change. I think you should take,
Just instead of
just
different.
instead of different number, just reduced number.
Okay,
And that
that's good.
would leave it in there, and it would also encourage less development.
And then on the next page, it talks about the density again. It says, density shall be reviewed via a yield plan defined in the zoning ordinance as the number of lots permitted in an open space development shall be no greater than the number of units that would be permitted in a conventional subdivision of the parent lot, meeting all applicable requirements of the zoning ordinance and development regulations. A yield plan must be submitted in accordance with the development regulations for open space development.
Sounds good.
And then the rest I left alone. That was already in there.
And you admitted a claim. Feasible convention.
Joanne,
Yeah.
as an example on that one, like, in the agricultural district, it'd be like a 2 acre lot minimum. So you have 20 acres, it'd be 10 lots.
No, it'd actually be less because you have to subtract the roads.
You
Subtract
have
the
to do
roads,
roads,
steep slopes.
utilities, steep
Wetlands.
slopes.
All these,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So what they do is they take a 20-acre lot, they lay out a road, and then they squeeze in as many lots as they can meets the 2 acre zoning and frontage, and they come up with 13 lots. So then when they do that is the yield plan that says we can yield this many houses on this parcel. Now, when they do a smaller cluster subdivision or whatever you want to call it, they can bring those 13 houses down to a smaller area and build a shorter road and get a density change for, like sideline setbacks and all that.
Smaller lots.
Smaller
And then they
lots.
have the rest is open space.
Which is probably another question for, I guess it's for planning board, who manages that open space, because we've had problems with that too. Well, that's good, Joanne. What's your next one?
I think there's maybe one more.
Landscaping.
Here we go, landscaping.
Landscaping?
Plant species, this is where am I? Page 108, Appendix G, letter I. Plant species shall be identified by both common and botanical name and shown on the plan by indicating their crown spread drawn to scale.
What is crown spread? I don't know that term.
That's the circle, right?
Circle.
That is the circle, the crown
I
spread?
think so,
Is that the
yes.
fancy name for the circle that the tree is
Yeah, I
gonna
guess that
grow
makes
into?
sense.
Yeah.
In 15 years.
10 years. 10 years, I think.
Do
is
we
the
want to
standard.
define what year
I
that,
think-
should we say crown spread at planting? Is it that something that you wanted to see?
I want to let Joanne explain everything first and then we'll...
Can we go through the whole of
Yeah.
the landscaping, there's not that many, and then go back, because
Yep,
I
yep.
think some of them might be identified in here.
That's just what I said.
On that same page, under number 2, letter B, it's at the very last sentence, ground cover shall be utilized on all slopes in excess of more than 15%. No,
That's-
I'm
In
sorry.
excess was crossed out.
In
I think
excess
just
is crossed
more
out.
than 15%.
More than 15%.
So is that our new steep slope regulation, 15%?
No,
I
steep
thought it was
slopes
20%.
are 20%. This is ground cover shall be utilized on all slopes more than 15. I think it was already 15, this just changed it from in excess of to
It just
more
changed the
than.
wording, because in
Yeah.
excess of means more than as well, right? It's just a
Right.
different way to say it.
Sounds better in excess of, I think. But
More than is very common, plain language.
that's
Yeah.
why it changed it. So that's the same thing. And then if you go to page 109, at the top, to promote on-site water retention and filtration, I added this, I don't know if you're gonna like it. Landscaped areas shall be designed in a manner that guides stormwater from on-site impervious roads, parking areas, sidewalks, and walkways to vegetated areas or approved retention areas. And then under that is letter G. Curbing or equivalent barriers shall be required to protect vegetation from vehicular damage. Barriers shall be designed with openings that allow stormwater to flow into vegetated areas. All curbing in the town's right-of-way shall be granite.
So Joanne, I'd like you to explain the first paragraph you wrote up yourself. Stormwater from on-site impervious roads, parking areas, and sidewalks. They're going to be salt. There's going to be salt in that. Do you want to send salt into...
So this is
Into-
promoting the retention from the landscaped areas. Shall be designed in a manner that guides stormwater, oh no, you're right, from on-site impervious roads. No, that's not a good idea.
I would say walkways would be okay, maybe.
But not,
I don't know, I understand your
Not
theory,
parking
but I
lots.
think you might be creating a nightmare here for us,
Yeah,
because then we require that the plants live, and then we require that we send salt into
right.
the plant
That's
beds.
not a good idea.
And
So let's-
I'd have to compare this to the wording in that stormwater standards too, because I don't know if it is telling them to do something opposite of what those do.
Joanne, I
Which I
was,
know you showed this to me, but I'm just thinking
Yeah,
of that now.
I think I saw this in Milford's regs.
I think we should take that whole paragraph out and let you work on it for a future review.
Okay, and how about the next
Okay,
portion?
so we're gonna all cross out that whole first paragraph.
The portion where it says curbing or equivalent barrier shall be required to protect vegetation from vehicular damage.
Yeah.
You have curbing requirements in the other, don't you?
Yeah, I think,
Barriers shall be
usually
designed with
raised up
openings to allow
somehow.
stormwater to flow into. See, now you're back to, you're back to the second sentence, barriers to, with openings allow stormwater to flow to vegetated areas.
I would recommend we remove it,
The whole thing?
yeah.
Okay.
All right, and then, where are we?
You made a couple edits as you go down the page.
Those are similar to the other edits, it just spell checked edits. For all buildings except single-family and two-family residential structures in the commercial
Industrial.
industrial flex zone,
So are you taking the word
And
commercial out, or is commercial staying?
staying.
Okay,
In the commercial,
comma,
comma, commercial industrial flex zone,
Yes.
comma, and industrial zones. All I did was add in that other zone.
okay.
because
And
it-
took out a zone that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Professional business doesn't exist in our town.
Yeah.
So, that was just a small change.
And that's a good thing, because now that the legislature has permitted commercial buildings to be transferred into residential buildings, I think we're gonna have to have some screening standards and stuff that apply to the commercial buildings as well. Good.
Okay, on page 110, at the bottom of the page, small, what was that, II.
Aye,
Existing natural vegetation shall be retained where possible.
Should be retained, you wrote.
Should be.
It's
Should
a
it
different
say-
word than shall.
Shall.
I'm
You
supposed
want
to
shall
say
or should?
shall. Depends how,
Jim Raymond hates should, because
I know. I guess it should say shall.
Meaningless.
because it doesn't, it's open to interpretation. Is shall,
Shall be retained where possible, because it does say where possible. Maximum effort should be made to preserve.
shall be made,
Okay, so effort shall be made to preserve small stands of trees rather than individual trees to minimize the potential for serious damage due to wind grade changes or soil compaction.
Is that supposed to say rather than, or is that a
yeah,
word
that
I'm
she
not
just, that's
familiar
a
with?
typo that she has to fix. It says rattan.
Yeah,
That's
Oh.
like, that's what you put in a chair.
Alternatives to pine trees are strongly encouraged.
For what?
Wait a minute, rather than, okay.
Alternatives to pine trees
Pine
are
trees.
strongly encouraged for what, Joanne?
Alternative to pine trees are strongly encouraged.
For what?
in replace of what?
Oh, yeah, I see what you mean. It's kind of a sentence that just ended. It doesn't really make sense here.
Yeah, because they're existing, they're gonna be what
Exactly.
they are, they're either pine trees or deciduous.
Right,
So eliminate the last
I would
sentence?
say that,
The alternatives to pine trees are strongly encouraged, you're gonna strike that sentence?
yes.
Yeah,
And then
Because
it's
it's just whatever's already there. There's
Yes.
no alternative.
there is no
Joe?
alternative.
Joanne, staying on page 109, last paragraph about solid screen fencing. What happens 20 years in the future when the fence is rotting and falling down? Is that code enforcement to have it put there?
Yes, we have that happen a lot. Right now, it's happening over by the old Shaw's Plaza. And they do have to
Where?
maintain the fences.
The old Shaw's Plaza.
Thank you.
No, but I'm just, where's?
You may remember, Dave, when we did the towing business behind Paris repair, that fence was falling down, and part of the application was they had to repair the whole fence as part of that project to put this fence back up.
Thank you.
I think That's it.
You have something on page 111 too?
111 and shall, I believe, is misspelled.
Yeah, we need a
Oh,
H
here
in
we
there.
go. All plant materials shall have a minimum winter hardiness for zone 6A.
Good one.
I added that because
Good one,
it doesn't spell it out anywhere as to where we are
good one.
in the zones of the country.
Did you get that edit for shall?
Yes.
It's a sal right now.
Yes.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you heard that.
I think spell check will probably catch all that stuff when you run it through, right, Joanne?
Maybe
Yes.
sal's some
I haven't
word.
spell checked this at all, so, or not
It's obvious
recently.
you haven't.
So letter D there is the one about, just
how you really
about
feel
the maintenance, if anyone's interested in how it's written.
So next time we should be able to,
We should be able to adopt this very soon for Joanne, once she gets her edit from her and Scott regarding the,
Bond time
the bond
frame,
schedule, the bond review time, and then she gets
clearance,
the,
sprinklers.
authorization in writing from the fire chief that it is available to contractors if they choose to request it from the fire department.
Nobody has anything else, right? It's the bond
You read that
department,
before?
vertical clearance, sprinklers.
No.
nobody read through it already?
We have two sitting members that have to put signatures on it, and you're not one of them.
I'm not one of them.
So don't worry about it.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Anybody, I have two things on my extra items. Joanne, I have a question for you. I received a site plan from Patty on Monday to sign. It was the Eversource parking area construction to turn the old substation into. How come they were permitted to start work before they got a site plan?
They weren't.
So it turned out that they were actually only doing demolition.
Doesn't matter.
The demolition had a separate permit
Oh,
from
it
the
had
building
a
department.
separate.
Yeah.
That's a demo
Yeah,
permit.
it had a
Yeah.
demolition.
Which was approved last fall. But then they had a new demo permit that they applied for, which was specifically for a building that was on there with asbestos in it, and that was called out on the new plan, and all the other removal part was part of the old. But I actually sent Jack there too. So
I just want to
I
know.
saw silt fence go up, and I called TF Marin. I was like, hey, what's going on? We haven't had a pre-con, you don't have signed plans. It's like, we won't do anything, we needed our turtle inclusion fence up by a specific date for DES reasons.
Okay.
Then the next week, I'm driving by, and there's an excavator.
There's three of
trenching.
excavators.
Yeah, trenching along, and I just like, kind of lost it, and I'd sent Jack, I think I called you first, and then I sent Jack over there. Jack's gave them a cease and desist, and they stopped, and then there was all a hullabaloo. They now have signed plans. We had a pre-con on Tuesday.
I know they have
yeah.
signed plans because I signed them on Monday.
Yeah, so, and then we had the pre-con on Tuesday, and they met the other conditions, so now they can get that demo permit approved for the little brick building, and then,
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that we still followed the rule that they couldn't start work until they got a signed plan.
no, and I was on top of that. It
Thank
was
you.
just,
And they didn't have a signed plan because they just got their ART permit this week.
Right.
on a similar note, I received an email, or maybe it was a phone call from Mr. Golan at TF Marin asking me how I want the SWIP reports for the athletic facility at St. Anselm's. And I was very confused. I was like, we haven't had a pre-con. Around Christmas time, I got an
Yeah,
email
well,
from
they've
them.
got 6,000 yards of loam over there they're giving away. So I guess they're working.
I got an email around Christmas time, what dates can you do a pre-con for? We gave them dates. Bedford responded, apparently TF Moran didn't say, like, do this in tandem with Bedford and us at the same time, and Bedford just turned around and said, those dates don't work for us. And then I didn't get another email, and apparently they had the pre-con without Goffstown.
All right, so that's their violation of their own Bedford planning approval. Because Bedford planning approval required that Goffstown be notified for all, so I'd like you to please notify,
This was just last week that
I would like you to please talk to Becky.
When did this happen?
I don't know when their pre-con was, because they're working over there.
I know they're working.
Yeah.
I think you should have a conversation with Becky and let her know that our town engineer was not included in the pre-con meeting.
Fire and sewer weren't either, and sewer is the one that needs to be there more than anything.
Yeah, because it comes to our town.
It's really their project in terms of the Goffstown portion.
So, and we're requesting an immediate response to this matter that is unresolved.
That was also kind of why I flipped when I saw the work at Eversource, was because I just went through this with, I kind of gave Nick some crap for us not being there. And he-
Okay, the other thing I had was back to the landscaping at the condo site, Dearborn Village. Do we know if they are replacing it? Are they imposing it? Are they tearing it out and putting
She
a
said
fence
they
in?
would.
What are they doing?
They're replacing it, well, she said they would replace it if they had to, but whoever looked at it told them it wasn't dead, and
When they all turn brown, they're all dead.
they're dead, they're absolutely dead. Everything's bonded there, it's a significant bond because it was basically their whole site, so.
We're not letting go of any bonds.
We
until
will
this is
not, no,
resolved.
that's 100%, they need to do what was
And
required.
they need to do what was updated, not from the original.
No, yeah, no, they're adding trees.
Well, because there was a comment came back that somebody said that they didn't have to add that one tree on the end that we wanted.
No, it has to,
No.
when they're done planting,
So they sent me an email, it's like, hey, look, these are gonna grow to be this big, do we really have to do this? And I was like, if you don't wanna do what the planning board required, you need to go ask for that, and they're not going to say yes.
the day the fence would have gone up, it would have been a full screen of the whole backyard.
Yeah.
If they wanted to switch it to landscaping, when they're done with the landscaping, it has to be a full screen of the backyard the day they're done planting.
Because it's a replacement of the fence.
Of the fence, which is a full screen.
Yeah, and their mound is only like this high, where their fence is 6 feet tall, so they should have just put the fence in the first place, and they would be,
Yeah.
So,
they have work in their road that's not complete too.
Joanne, do you have
Patch
that
and
landscaping
striping.
changes? Do you know the ages for the landscaping? Because we didn't address my comment that we need to come up with a smaller circle, right? For the planted trees we're gonna
Oh,
accept.
I thought we put something in there.
I saw something
I don't
on the
know.
landscape circle things.
I wanna know what the answer to that was before it gets sent down the road. Okay, it's after that.
Landscaping starts on page 108.
Yes. Now, minimum. I want you to know that
It's-
you need to find
I
it.
think the crown
110.
spread drawn to scale, we need to specify.
Where is that? What is that? Where
So
is it?
letter I,
Under A?
under A1, letter
A1.
I, plant species shall be identified, blah, 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 indicating their crown spread. Maybe we need to specify crown spread at planting.
No, we want crown spread to be a definitive time frame, a 2-year crown spread or something. We'll give them time
Okay.
to grow, but at
Okay.
2 years, it has to equal the crown spread that's
You want-
shown on the
You want
plan.
2 year?
What's the board members think? Is 2 years good? Is that too
Yeah.
quick? Because we were using 10 years,
It depends on the plan thing too,
Yeah.
so somewhere between 2 and 3 years.
Probably.
but no more.
No, no
Certainly no
more,
more.
no more.
I think 2 years would be a good number. Anybody disagree with 2 years?
No.
Anybody
So
disagree with
indicating
2
their
years?
crown spread at
2
2
years.
years.
Because I just kept seeing more and more stuff getting biased that was not adequate.
Before we wrap, I had a meeting in here earlier today, and they were using this projector, and kind of gave me the idea that if this board would like, I can bring my laptop and we can have the plans up here and the plans on that TV in the back. And Derek told me that when the plans are up here, Goffstown TV can actually like put that
Yes.
on the screen as well.
We have to rearrange all the seating then, so let's talk about how we're gonna.
I don't know
redo all the
whether
seating.
this projects beyond us, so you wouldn't cast a shadow on it, we would just.
Well, how am I supposed to see it if I'm sitting here?
You get the board over
Well,
there.
no, you can't see that TV from here.
Well, you have it in front of
You can't see
you.
it.
You
You
can
have to
see it on
actually
my,
shoot to
on
the
my
other side.
screen. It's more for the public, I
If you
think.
have the paper copy in front of you, Tim.
And my laptop would be here for,
I think if we're gonna do that plan, we have to rearrange the seating here and take away the head table here. Because
it was just a thought, I
I
didn't.
Why don't
understand
you
it.
try it in between and then you'll know how it works, like somebody can come down and,
Yeah,
try
I
it.
didn't know if it would help the audience to have it there.
I think it'd
And
be
then the
great for
fact that
you.
it could be on TV, that portion could
Yeah.
be seen on TV. Because if you watch on TV, you don't see the plan at all, really,
Right.
right?
If
I mean, they
that's-
zoom in over there, but it's not.
Yeah.
If that
It's not
screen
that
was over
great.
there in the corner, it'd be great, because that's where the plans always used to be when I first came to this planning board. That's where the plans went, and the presenters stood right there in front of all of us, and the people could see it, and we could see
I
it.
think the people in the back always had trouble though. That's why I think they moved it in the first
But the
place.
TV would be nice for them.
You could, try it
Would
like
we like to try it? Maybe the next one?
I think we should.
between now and the next meeting, we could fool around with
Yeah,
it.
you want
Yeah.
me to come by with my
Yeah,
laptop? and-
Yeah, and then see how it works.
Yeah, we use it for the select board. It works pretty good.
Yeah, I just thought it might be beneficial. Especially for people on TV that don't, sure they can zoom in on Earl Sanford over there with his plan, but it's like,
Does anyone know how many people are actually watching these meetings?
I don't know.
Hold on, I can give you a number in about
Just curious.
3 minutes.
So, Tim, I just went and asked, 2 years might be too soon for that?
Because,
Because you're still gonna have some additional growth that happens between 3 and 4 on most arborvitae
well,
vehicles.
that's great, because then they grow together at that point, and they
Right.
create a screen.
So is that what we really want, is for them to intertwine? Because sometimes that will actually make some trees not perform that well afterward.
Then I think that if they want to present an alternate to the 2-year screening crown, then they need to provide us with information on what they're planting and how it would grow or something. We have to have a baseline to start with, and then we can give relief from the baseline out.
Because this says that you'll typically see the intertwining occur between year 3 and 4.
Well,
I'm just,
I agree with what you're saying.
Okay.
But we just need to make it so that the screening actually works when it's done. I mean, take a ride by the YMCA and look at the screening.
And how many years has it been?
Well, it's been 15 that I
I was
know.
gonna
How's the
say, I've
screening?
been in town 11 and that stuff's been there, or 12, I've been
So-
there 12 years.
They had
It's
to
been there
replant
since
a
then.
lot of those
Yeah.
trees because
Because
they
they died.
died.
I wonder why.
Only after we
maybe-
forced them
So maybe we need to amend that.
to 3. Want to split the difference?
I think, personally, I don't think it could hurt anything going longer, so.
I think going longer is a bad idea, because then you can't back it up. I'd rather give them 3 if Joshua thinks that it's a better number,
Yeah, you
and
can
let them
always
ask
they
for
can always ask for a waiver.
a little, that's right, which we love them. So why don't we make it 3, Scott, instead of 2,
Okay.
please? If you don't
Look at
mind.
that, I turned to the exact right page.
Well, Julian, to answer your question, there's only one person watching the meeting right now.
Just one?
Just one.
That's
Yeah, it's me.
It's Tim.
Wow.
What?
There's only one person watching the meeting right
Wait,
now.
is there an actual number on the
Yeah.
screen?
Yeah, so one view.
Oh, that's you.
Let me log off.
You're talking. There's about a 20-second lag time.
Who seconded Phil's motion?
I did.
Motion's on the floor to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion passes. Thank you. GTV, we are adjourned.